Move the chains.
Welcome to the EndZone YouTube. Let's move the chains. We're here with Reed from Markcast. We've already recorded this once, and I accidentally said Mark from Markcast, but we're here with Reed. My apologies. Reed, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. No, I appreciate it. No worries. I mean, I take it as a call of, as long as they're talking about you one way, whatever they call you, as long as they're talking, I always think that's a good thing. So we're doing
Exactly. It's a good name. It's probably got a good SEO on YouTube and on Google, so you should keep it for sure.
Well, it's too late now. We're might be switching around some logos and stuff here, moving into more CFL coverage here in the off season. But yes, too late to go back on the Markcast now. I think that's what we're stuck with.
Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and get right into it. Viewers, if you're watching, Reed has been on the Markcast for a very long time covering spring football, and his show, which you should definitely go watch. I'll provide a link down below to his channel. He does a great job at analyzing the sport and also bringing in people related to the sport, whether it's players, people and personnel, insiders like Mike Mitchell, pretty much everything you can think about of the sport. He's got every single corner of it. That plus Canadian football. If you aren't watching the CFL, you're missing out. And sorry, my dog's barking in the background, but we'll go ahead and get it started. So, what was your honest opinion of UFL season 1?
It's tough, and I've gone this way back, even as far as kind of the XFL back last season with that launch, and obviously we talked to the USFL back in 2022, and then where they overlapped last season, and now the merger, because there's two different sides to any of these leagues, right? There's the football side, and we bring in lots of smart people. We got Pat Ruffino come on, the Professor Andrew Murray. We have a lot of different kind of football analysts that look at the X's and O's of it all. And then obviously there's the marketing and branding. And a lot of times when we are critical of these spring leagues, it's not the football. And I think especially with this season, we saw probably the best level of spring football. Like I said, we've done postseason recaps with Mike Mitchell, and we've had different XFL executives on throughout the years leading into this season. We had Daryl Johnston on at the beginning of this year, kind of talking about what they wanted to see this year. The football is always good. My critiques and comments are usually involved in the branding and marketing, getting the local engagement in there. We've had various arena football execs, people on throughout this season. What would they do different? I hope to have a pretty good blockbuster guest here coming up here soon as you listen to this, talking about what they would like to see with some of the UFL branding moving forward. So from a football side, I definitely would say, A minus in that regard. Marketing, everything else, C plus, B minus. I think I said on our show, B plus, A minus overall when Mike Mitchell and I were recapping it. I think football really strong, but sometimes people misconstrue that of like, well, we're poo-pooing on everything. No, the football is high quality, the scouting, the player development, all of that stuff, the rule changes, everything. It's always the branding and marketing that leaves a little bit left to be desired.
I think you brought up some great points. And I think what you are saying to me is the consensus within the spring football community and probably fans outside who are more casual, in a sense that because we merged leagues and are down to 8 teams and even coaches, merging coaches and personnel, the quality of play is light years better, in my opinion, compared to XFL 2023 and then USFL's and so on. And it to me, it does rival that XFL 2020. But what XFL 2020, and to me, that's kind of the peak of this new era of spring football. And what I loved, I was a Battlehawks fan because I lived in St. Louis, or used to live in St. Louis. And there was just a feeling around the league and an atmosphere that I'm still waiting for the UFL to have. But the play was incredible. And you brought on a guest that I watched a couple of weeks ago. I'm forgetting his name, but he mentioned the Premier Lacrosse League, and he was an arena football guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought he brought up some great points on maybe how this offseason, obviously the UFL had a short time frame to launch this entire league. Like, we already know spring football is hard. It's hard enough, honestly, and we should give them credit for what they were able to do. But if I'm a UFL executive, I'm going to leagues like UFC, MLS, maybe some of these newer leagues, the Premier Lacrosse League, who are doing it and doing it really well and breaking even. They're in the green financially, and see what are the creative things that they are doing to create other arms of revenue. And kind of what I've missed is, Danny Garcia said this a lot with the XFL, how it's going to be a year-round product. Well, the Premier Lacrosse League is an example of a league that is a year-round product, and it's not because they want to; it's because they're forced to. Because lacrosse is not a popular sport overall in this giant sports community; it's very niche. So what they have to do is they have to create camps, they have to create youth leagues, all these different things. What are your opinions on that with the UFL? Do you think that could be something that they could pursue?
Well, absolutely, and it's so interesting because we had it, and Daryl Johnston was on with one of the Fox Sports writers coming out of this season. I think it was the week of the championship game, talking that 8 cities were going to return last year. There's been lots of speculation: are we going to expand? Are we going to relocate? Are we going to add new franchises? Any of that? 8 teams coming back, and a lot of this, and even as far as Daryl Johnston, when he was on our show preseason, talked a lot about, well, we've had this truncated, off season here. We had the merger and we started late. And that's why we went March 30th, because we couldn't go any earlier because of that. This is not, I understand this is a new league. This is not a new league starting from scratch. You had 8 teams and marketing in place for the XFL. You had the same for the USFL through Fox and how they did it. This is not, so I don't like that as an excuse. Like, well, like, this was season 1. No, I mean, this is season 3 of the USFL here. This is season 2 of the XFL. You're not starting from scratch. You have fan bases in place. You have stadium deals in place. You have a lot of this in place already. So I don't like that. I do agree with you. We had Todd Murko. That's who you were talking about, on, former team president of the LA franchise back in the AFL. Grew their local fan base tremendously over the time that he was there. Even in LA, that was kind of a tough sports market, not necessarily a football market back when they were there. But you hear now, I agree with you, this needs to be a year-round product. But already it's June 26th as we record this. Whenever this comes out, head coaches, everybody, they're going to be seasonally laid off at the end of this month. They're going to come back on in January. They're going to be, as Mike Mitchell's reporting, paid attendance fees this summer if when they go to the showcases, do any of that stuff. But already we're not employing the head coaches all year. And I understand that. And I understand, okay, we need to be cost conscious and we need to do all that stuff. But already now you're setting this precedent where the second the season's done, we're getting rid of the people that we don't necessarily need to be on staff all year. How are you planning to sell tickets here in the off season? How are you planning to market? I mean, there's months and months here going in. I'm such afraid of this. And I know one of the questions you sent me earlier, and we'll talk about it later, but yes, this needs to be a year-round product. And it already, the actions that they have don't seem to be reflecting what they said just 2 weeks ago. I mean, Daryl was just on the record saying we're going to be invested in this. Yet, and I understand these decisions were in place, head coaches July 1st aren't going to be employed anymore until January.
And on top of that, we're having the rookie draft coming up as well. So I was wondering, like, okay, how's that going to work? Are you just going to pay them to sit at the computer and draft? Like, what does that look like? Because I for one, even if it's just streamed on YouTube or something like that, I'd like to have some type of coverage. Like, I thought they did well. I watched the ESPN show with Scooby Magaza, and I thought that was really entertaining. Like, could they do something simple with that during either the rookie draft, or if they do some sort of draft afterwards, which we really don't know because there's no news out of them, just assuming that they will. But yeah, I'm personally looking for that year-round feel. And I've lived and experienced spring football and have family in 3 different spring football cities. And the consensus is that USFL and XFL wise. So St. Louis, Houston, Birmingham. And this year was like the year that everybody in these cities, and including me and my experience with those cities, we're just like, a lot of people don't even know there's a team.
Yeah.
Like there's no billboards. Like when the USFL first came to Birmingham, and the XFL, of course, in 2020 was in Houston And in St. Louis, there was signage everywhere. Like it felt like there was a team. Where in Birmingham, it's year 3, and I have people who I know who think the Stallions are the soccer team. And that's, to me, I understand how much they want the TV product, right? They're spending a lot of money, or what they could, I guess, maybe if they're not spending money on the ad space because it's on Fox or ESPN. I don't know how that works, but they're not getting money from other people who would put ads on there. So they're spending money in some sorts. And it feels like they're focusing a lot on Twitter, social media, all that. But I'm wondering when we're going to see the grassroots marketing. Like in Birmingham, there used to be a giant football on Highway 280, and now that's gone. There used to be signage. There used to be at least like 2 or 3 or 4 signs in the city. And believe it or not, that helps a lot. So do you see this distinction between like the grassroots marketing and the marketing on digital and TV?
Yeah, I agree with you. It seems to me, and we had this conversation with Mike last week, of if the league is too focused on being a TV only product, right? Because we talk all the time in attendance. I know that got heavy all this season with Birmingham and everything else. But if the point of this league is to sell these franchises, and you are averaging 6, 7, 8,000 people per game, I don't understand what you are selling these franchises for. Is besides the fact that then, if I'm, Reed the millionaire or billionaire, I come in, well, I still got to deal with Fox, Redbird, Danny, Dwayne, Russ, Daryl. Like, I got to deal with everybody. I don't have autonomy here to kind of run my team. Okay, well, then I'm going to spend my money to market. Then do I get 10% of the merchant? Like, what am I buying into here? But I totally know what you're saying in terms of like these drafts and everything. They did it was the rookie, because the USFL did the college draft, and then the XFL did the rookie draft. I could have those reversed. I was on with XFL, this was back pre-merger. Hey, are you guys doing anything for the supplemental or for this draft? Well, we're going to release it Friday at this point. Okay, can we, like, do you know what time exactly it's going to be there? Could we be on the Zoom call with it so that we can I have analysts standing by, because again, I'm just the dummy that hosts the channel, but I have smart football people. We can talk about this. Well, no, because, we don't want it to leak, or we don't want that. Next year we'll do it better the next time. And you never get it next time. They never had another one of those because now they merged. God knows what's going to happen now. It was the same thing when they did the supplemental draft going into the merger here. They drafted, I think it was Friday. They posted the stuff on Monday. They didn't want any news coming out because we don't want people's feelings hurt if they find out on social. Well, spoiler alert, it came out anyway. You can't draft people on Friday, tell them they're a part of the league or not, and expect that to be quiet till Monday. It's all these missed opportunities. It would not cost a penny for us to be on that Zoom call, have the people standing by to talk about all these players, and be able to go on. Is it instead they post a press release, it dies, we move on, and nobody cares. I don't understand how you're supposed to build any offseason momentum at all when nothing is lived up to what it could be at all. It's kind of like the least amount of effort, or we're just getting through this and moving on.
Yeah, that is a great point. Like I feel like it's hard to build hype and fandom around the league when you're just getting it through a press release. Like I would love to see more media coming out. Like it does feel weird how with the UFL, it feels like a majority of the media is just outside independent people who make no money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas usually it's like, yeah, me too. Me 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, you can name all the great people out there who are trying to build it up because we love it. I've had opportunities to meet players, and I met players a long time ago before these leagues, and they ended up being in the leagues, and it's just hard to not root for them and everything. And we're really trying to build it up. So I also think, to people who say, "Oh, stop criticizing league." It's not because we want it to fail. It's like a healthy criticism, right? And
yeah. Well, no, I just to like, I do just want to make sure that's because I get it a lot. I'm like the big negative Nancy, like you, like there's a difference between, hating, complaining, just, bitching about whatever, and then giving constructive, like, this is tangible things that can be done. When Birmingham, with the Stallions, right? When your team, I said online, it was the week going into the playoffs. We had talked all season about the lack of attendance at Protective Stadium. Birmingham, 2-time champions, going for their third. The last home game in Birmingham, the week of the playoffs, they had 2 remote media availabilities for the Stallions team. Skip Holtz, that's been on every week, and then they had, I think it was a defensive tackle that was available to talk. The next week, going into the championship game, it was the safety instead, and then it was Coach Holtz. If I'm a Birmingham media person, what am I supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do with two media availabilities, one of which I get all the time anyway? Another, no disrespect to any one player, but you have Adrian Martinez competing for the MVP trophy. Why don't we talk to Matt Corral? What's that been like? Why don't we talk to Anthony Blevins? Hey, you've been brought in to shore up the defense here because you had to let go of your defensive coordinator here. Like, what have those changes been? We don't do any of that. And then they wonder, well, why doesn't Birmingham care about this? Because you're not giving them an opportunity to. And that's something that doesn't cost a penny. That's your media person for the Stallions setting up 2 or 3 more remote Zoom calls. It doesn't take, it's 10 extra minutes of your time to set that up. It's little things like that that just kill me.
Yeah, and speaking of remote or not full time, you mentioned how the coaches aren't full time. One thing that I think, and I'd love to know your opinions on this, is I'm sure you know that the ticket sales, there aren't actually offices in the cities. To me, that's problematic. I don't know how you feel, but I feel it should be full time, year round, pushing tickets. Like if I were working for the league, I put on a collared shirt, a Stallion shirt, go door to door in all the suburbs and in the city in Birmingham or
Well,
any city.
100%. I thought, because I was a fan in 2020, so I lived through this. It's interesting to have lived through this as a fan, and what, like you said, a lot of people consider that really the golden age of this. So I lived through it as a fan. I listened to Chalk Talk, I listened to Alan and Brian, I listened to Mark on the news. Like, I listened to all that. I was a fan. We had a team in Seattle. We were front row, 50-yard line. Like, we were all invested as fans. And what I loved about it was having that local Seattle street team. We had Ryan Gustafson. And even when it came to us buying tickets, there was someone that we could talk to. Hey, we're invested. We want to be a part of this. Doing the weekly, social media hits, going out, setting up, that we had like fan meetup events and shirt giveaways. And Jim Zorn was around, and they even bought like free beer at certain events for people. We always joked at the time, like, hey, we got a couple of free beers from Vince McMahon. Like, that's pretty cool. I can't always say we're up $20 on Vince. And there's just not a lot of that now. And I think we can get to that, right? I think that they seem to think that they know that they need to do that, but then whether it's a lack of money or a lack of whatever, we're not doing that. We're not invested in that. And like I said, we saw that XFL laid off all their ticketing people last year seasonally, brought them in at the end of the year into the new year to go into, start selling them that way. I don't know. They say this year they're going to, put out the schedules and stuff earlier. You got to have people in place to do that. But a month, 2 months early, I don't know. I think you could have tickets open for 6 months. If you're not promoting it, it doesn't matter how long you have the ticket sales open.
Yeah, so what was to you, I'm actually, you brought up something that I'm super fascinated by. What was the difference between XFL 2020 and XFL 2023 for the Seattle Sea Dragons?
It felt like we had a presence here. So there's the Seattle area. All our sporting stuff is pretty condensed, right? We have Lumen Field next door to T-Mobile, and then now we have the Kraken and Climate Pledge. But at the time, that was our sporting. And it was such a stupid thing, but there's a huge mural space down, and I think now it's taken over by, we had the Seattle Sonics super fan that sadly passed away, and so I think he has kind of a mural now there in his kind of memory. But they had this huge Seattle at the time, it was the Dragons, a big mural posted there. Anytime you're walking in and out of Lumen Field, you would see that. They also had ticketing people, marketing people working outside of all the other events at Lumen, me as my own business, I do weddings and events. I was in the Northwest Wedding and Event Show, which is like the biggest, local kind of Seattle, Northwest, whatever for, hey, we've got charter buses, we do catering, we do this, we do that. They had a booth there selling tickets, handing out, letting people know what's going on. Like anything that I was in, either as a fan or in my professional world, whatever, interacting with these people, having social people respond to comments online, respond, hey, I'm at the mural posting, hey, look at, retweeting this, showing this. There's like a weird, and I know the XFL got a little bit better in the season of like, let's retweet, hey, this is a great game, but like, there seems to be this weird, like, well, we can't retweet everybody, or don't want to like too many, like, you're the XFL, you're the UFL, like embrace this stuff. Like I have some of the teams follow me, some of the teams don't. It's like, is that like what is the holdup here? Like when you want to engage in this many people, if I'm a Battlehawk super fan and I'm in every game and I'm retweeting and I'm, handing out tickets and signs, let's embrace that. Retweet that out. Build it. I don't know, build the Battlehawk super fan is here. Like there's just this weird disconnect of like, I don't think that they know where they are in the hierarchy. I think that they think they're a top 4, 5, 6 market, like a sports league. And you're more like the CFL. You got to get out there. You got to hit the grassroots. You got to embrace this. Send players out to volunteer in schools. I know we're getting some of the food camp stuff or food shelter, whatever. It's all in Arlington because we're in the hub. But like, you need to get these guys out more. They're just not. There's just this weird disconnect there. I don't understand.
Yeah, and kind of what you've said, and I don't know if you're hinting at this, but part of the league I feel like doesn't have their complete identity laid out. Like almost part of it feels like it's trying to be the NFL in terms of being super professional and respected. But also a lot of people watch spring football because they don't want to be the no fun league. They want it to be extremely fun, which is to me what XFL 2020 was. And then you have like in the championship game, a guy got a penalty or had to change his socks or something because they were the wrong colors. I've seen multiple players complaining about fines and things like that on Twitter. And to me, everything down, like I'm a marketing guy and I do a lot of business stuff. I'm trying to analyze businesses. Everything down to the logo itself of the UFL. Like, and I had this complaint about XFL 2023. Like it just part of it, and it's just a gut feeling. Like maybe I can't put my words all into it, but XFL 2023 or 2020, excuse me, everything from the branding, the messaging, how everything was played out just felt more fun and felt like it wasn't trying to be the NFL, but it was also still okay, like we're still a feeder. Like, we're still trying to get guys to play, but also we don't want to be this super professional like because you're not, you want to maybe try and fill the hunger of fans who just want something really fun.
It's a weird disconnect, and I agree with you. And I don't, because again, this isn't disrespectful of like, well, you need to be more like whatever. It's just you can build to that place, but during the season, and we've been blessed, we've been allowed to cover the league and be credentialed, and like this and Daryl Johnson, all that. Like this is not. I'm trying to speak to the larger scale here, because for the most part, I've been very blessed with kind of like how I've been treated and interacted with. But you'd hear, I'm sure you saw that sports gambling podcast talking about not being able to get credentialed for the games and complaining. Okay, what are the standards here? What do we need to be? We're a podcast. We're sports gambling. We have a larger following than even some of the teams, that are in the league. Like, what are the metrics for us to be able to be, credentialed for this? I was at the championship game. I know people that got credentials approved. I know people that got credentials denied. I think I was there. I think there were 7 people in the press box for the championship game. So I don't know if you think that's a high number, if you think that's a low number, but I think there were 7 people there. So I don't sense, we're bashing down the doors here, trying to get in to cover this. So I would say, you know, I understand wanting to be professional, and I think there are certain levels that you need to have your, you know, credentialed media be at. But I also don't think that this is the like NFL. Well, we can just pick and choose who we want to be here because there's a million other people waiting to cover this. I think they need to figure out kind of where they stand in that.
Yeah, and also I'm not like, trying to be rude or anything to anyone in the league because they've been nice to me. I've actually worked with a lot of people in the league because I worked for the USFL and I worked alongside Daryl Johnston at times and had a couple of conversations with him. But it wasn't any conversation that I remember. It was one quick story. It was before or after a game. Can't remember. It doesn't really matter. But you got the president and the face of the league is just picking up trash like on the sideline and littered into the stands. And I'm like, I'm working on the sidelines. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna start picking up trash. So there's no person who I think is like better suited other than Daryl because he's a leader and he definitely gets it. But I guess one final question for you: if you're sitting at the table with the head honchos of the United Football League, what do you say is like one tangible thing that can be done to help address some of these issues that fans have been vocal about?
Well, so there's two things. The number one is, you know, making this a year-round league, and I understand that there's a hesitance there in terms of money and capital and effort and things like that. But you know, ticket sales for 2020, the 2025 season needed to start the week after the championship game. As someone that I am in weddings, I am in a seasonal business. I do a majority of my weddings from May to October in Seattle in the Pacific Northwest. I market, you know, 365 to get weddings for those 3 and 4 months. So that is what you have to do. I can't start marketing in April like, hey, I'm going to be ready for weddings in May. No, I need to be booking now for next year. I need to be booking now for, the following year. That is part of it, keeping people on that way. And then I would say you really need to decide, like, do you want to be a TV product? Do you not care about attendance at all? Like, you need to understand that because you can't sit there and say, we want to sell these franchises. We want to be here. We want to do giveaways, get people into the stands. We want to give away hats and sweatshirts and glasses and be a part of that. But then at the other end say, well, we don't really care about that because the TV money is all that matters. Like, I wish they had an identity that way of TV versus in person. And I do think that we need to have the year-round league, and you need to have consistent messaging and marketing in these leagues all year. But it costs a lot. It costs a lot to run a billboard in Birmingham all season. It costs a lot to have a stand-up. I don't understand. I've said a million times on our show, you have Choctaw Stadium across the street from Globe Life where the Rangers play. I would have a table there at Texas Live every single day telling people about this. I haven't seen one piece of marketing or merch of signage anywhere around Choctaw. I've been there for the kickoff. I've been there midseason for Memorial Day. You would not know a professional league exists across the street. It's just little things like that. I hate to be just to come on here and complain, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's important because people's voices need to be heard because we want it to succeed. I think a lot of people should understand that when we have these critiques of the league, we believe that the leadership will make changes in the future, and they say they will. Obviously, Daryl Johnston has said multiple times himself about talking about Memphis. He's spoken about Birmingham. He's even talked about it when he was working with the USFL. He talked about some disappointing television numbers for championship games. So this is something that I think they are very conscious about. So I, for one, am excited to see what they now do and if they can implement this strategy. And also one thing, and what I hope they don't do, and this is just a theory, and the last thing I'll say, I think that you can't copy what's done in DC and in St. Louis because, and this is just my opinion, but they have fans and a group of football fans in their cities that despise the NFL or have disdain for the NFL in one way or the other. Obviously St. Louis, but then in DC, and I've been to DC a lot, friends who live there, Commanders have not treated their fans. I know you're a Commanders fan, but Dan Snyder doesn't have the greatest track record. And I know they're under new ownership, but it's been a
but
rocky road.
it is. But I think you're going to see a decline with DC now too. I talked with my wife about that. But I said the same thing with my wife about DC. I said they capitalized with that. They had that back in 2020 because of that. Well, now Jane Daniels, new ownership, Dan Quinn, there's a lot of things in place there that are exciting. If you are a DC fan, it's interesting to me. And we talk DC, we talk St. Louis, right? You'd say those are the two strongest franchises. You can include Birmingham in there on the field, right? And I think that there's this common misconception of like being good. Well, Birmingham's good on the field. Again, that's not the issue. That is a separate issue than being good in marketing in the stands. But DC, St. Louis, neither of those markets are what they are because of anything that was done in 2022, 2023, 2024, right? That is all things that were done 2018, 19, 20, devoid of any current, management or leadership. So it baffles me that we take credit for that, right? If you're the new UFL, not having really done anything to cultivate that, and then also not figuring out well, now what do we need to do to either replicate that, duplicate it, add to that? They didn't do that. No one involved in any of this. It's like I always say, it's like Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. Like you didn't do what was necessary to understand what you have, right? You have that without you acquired that without really doing the work or understanding why those two markets worked. And now you seem to be incapable of replicating that anywhere.
Yes,
So
I 100% agree. I'm glad because again, I just say that's like a theory, and I don't have the data. I mean, obviously we have the data of the attendance numbers, but I think that that's the one thing that I see. There's disdain for the NFL or NFL ownership, at least in those cities. And I honestly I expected San Antonio to take a step up. Obviously, being a Birmingham fan, it feels like the attendance has gone down since season 1 of the USFL, and we don't have those numbers from the USFL because they kept them private. But you can use the eye test. We don't, you can look up pictures on the internet of the first USFL game with the Birmingham Stallions versus the New Jersey Generals, and the game was pretty much sold out in Protective Stadium. Now they're struggling to get half the field. So we've got a lot of improvement, but we got season 1 down. Hopeful for growth in season 2. That's what we're looking for. And I'm sure we'll find it. I'm faithful in the ownership, in The Rock and Danny Garcia and Redbird Capital, who I hope stick with it. I know that they're investing a lot of money right now into college athletics. So part of me is also wondering, it's like, if you're an investment firm, like how much are you going to want to spend your time on the UFL compared to other sports businesses? But we shall see. We shall see.
I agree. I want to be optimistic. Like I said, I think you got to give them this season because whatever they've said, and okay, we need the full offseason, all of that stuff. I still just think you have too many competing philosophies here with Fox wanting just the TV product. Okay, we've had to merge with the XFL. We really didn't want to because we didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And then XFL, okay, we needed to merge because we didn't really see a light at the end of the tunnel the way that we're doing it. We're having to kind of combine those. But then also, how long does Redbird want to be involved in this? How long do they want to spend money? It's a weird... maybe I've always said you wouldn't necessarily have ever picked these 8 markets, so we're kind of in sub-ideal markets in a lot of places. There's a lot of, if you had gone back and redone the whiteboard 3 years ago about a better business plan, I think anything you would have put on the table would have been better than what we're at now, right? But we're here because of this complicated circumstances, and I think we're trying to make the best out of it. But I think putting your head down and just saying like this is fine isn't the way to do it. So that's why I try to vocalize the things I do, because I think nothing is ever improved by just saying like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. I'm a coach of a sports, local sports youth. I'm never okay, with just a winning season, right? You got to aim for the best, and that's what the UFL understands. And that's I think what people need to realize who watching or on Twitter is the UFL isn't okay with losing money, right? They're not okay with it either. So awesome. I mean, Reed almost said Mark again.
Okay.
Reed, incredible to have you on. And I really enjoyed learning about, what it was like, especially being in Seattle and how that was done with XFL 2020, which is, again, what we're comparing the UFL to now. Right or wrong, that was, to me, the peak of spring football in this new era. And I appreciate your opinions and coming on and discussing the United Football League.
I appreciate it. Sorry for rambling. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem. You have a good one.